Future wife, Abby, don't know when you're going to hear this. Maybe you'll find these words months from now, maybe years from now. Maybe you'll be sitting somewhere completely ordinary, holding your phone in your hand, never imagining that the person you were meant to meet had already been thinking about you long before he knew your name. And there is something I want you to understand before I say anything else. I kept something for you, my personal number, not because I expect you to call me tomorrow, not because I know where you are. I don't know what your voice sounds like when you're tired. I don't know how you laugh when something catches you completely off guard. I don't know what expression appears on your face when you're trying not to smile. I don't even know what name is saved in your phone right now. But somehow, AP, know I want my number to be there when the right moment finally comes. And if these words reach something inside you, stay here for a little while. Subscribe if you want to be here for the messages that are still waiting to be spoken. And if someone you love needs to hear something like this tonight, let these words find their way to them, because I don't think a number is just a number when it belongs to someone you genuinely want to know. Sometimes, a phone number is an unopened door. You can look at 10 digits and see nothing. But one day, those same digits can become the first hello, the first late-night conversation, the first time you hear someone say your name in a way that feels different. And maybe that's why I've never looked at my personal number quite the same way. There is something strangely intimate about giving someone your private number. You're not just giving them a way to contact you, you're giving them access to a part of your life that isn't available to everyone. You're saying, if you ever need me, you can reach me here. And future wife, I want you to know that I don't take those words lightly, because I've learned something about people as I've gotten older. We give our attention to many people. We give our time to many people. We answer messages. We return calls, we shake hands, we smile at strangers, we say, take care. But very few people ever become the person we genuinely want to be reachable for. That's different. And I think that's what I'm waiting for. Not someone who simply has my number. Someone who understands why I wanted her to have it. There may come a day when you call me for something completely ordinary. Maybe you'll say, are you awake? And I'll probably smile because you already know the answer. Maybe you'll call because your day was difficult and you don't want advice. You just want somebody there. Maybe you'll call because something wonderful happened, and you can't wait another minute before telling someone. And maybe one night you won't even know why you called. You'll just want to hear my voice. I think those are the moments that make two people close. Not the dramatic moments, not the perfect photographs, not the impressive promises, the small moments, the ones nobody else sees. A conversation that continues after midnight because neither person wants to be the first to say goodbye. A quiet, did you get home safely? A message that says, I'm thinking about you. A call that lasts 5 minutes but somehow changes the entire night. That's what I want with you. Something real enough that we don't have to perform for each other. Because eventually, everyone becomes tired of pretending. We become tired of looking strong when we're exhausted. We become tired of saying we're fine when we're not. We become tired of conversations where we carefully choose every word because we're afraid the other person might misunderstand us. I don't want that with you. I want the kind of connection where silence doesn't immediately become uncomfortable. Where I can sit beside you and not feel the pressure to fill every second with words. Where you can tell me something you've never told anyone without wondering whether I'll look at you differently afterward. Because the older we become, the more we realize that being understood is more valuable than being impressed. You don't need someone who thinks you're perfect. You need someone who can see the parts of you that aren't perfect, and still choose to stay. And I want to be that person for you. But there is something I have to admit. Sometimes I wonder whether you are already somewhere living a completely different life. Maybe you're busy with your own responsibilities. Maybe you're taking care of people you love. Maybe you're working towards something you've wanted for years. Maybe you've already experienced a kind of love that ended badly, and somewhere inside you, you've quietly decided that protecting your heart is safer than opening it again. If that's true, Abby won't blame you, because life teaches people to become careful. Every disappointment leaves a small instruction behind. Don't trust too quickly, don't expect too much, don't become attached, don't believe every promise. And eventually, without realizing it, a person can become so good at protecting their heart that they forget what it feels like to let someone close. I don't want to force my way through any of those walls. I don't want to arrive in your life demanding trust. I want to earn it slowly. Through consistency, through the little things. Through being there when being there is inconvenient. Through remembering what matters to you. Through listening when you need to talk and staying quiet when words aren't necessary. Because love isn't proven by how beautifully someone speaks when everything is easy. It's revealed by how they behave when life becomes inconvenient. And if one day you become my wife, I want you to know something before we ever meet. You won't have to compete for my attention. You won't have to wonder whether I secretly wish you were different. You won't have to become someone else just to keep me interested. I want to know you as you actually are, your habits, your quiet moments, your strange little preferences, the things you worry about, the things you don't tell people because you think they're too small to matter. the memories that still make you smile, the memories you don't like talking about, the dreams you've almost given up on, the things you pretend don't hurt anymore. All of it because when I imagine meeting you, I don't imagine meeting some perfect woman who never gets tired, never becomes upset, never changes her mind, and always knows exactly what to say. I imagine meeting a human being, and I hope you imagine the same when you think about me. A man who will sometimes get things wrong, a man who may need forgiveness, a man who won't always have the perfect words, but a man who wants to learn how to love you better instead of simply expecting you to accept whatever he gives. That's why this number matters to me. Because behind these digits is a promise I haven't made to you yet. The promise that when you finally enter my life, I don't want you to feel like a temporary visitor. I want you to feel like you finally found somewhere you can put your heart down. And maybe that's the strangest part of all. I don't know your number. You don't know mine. We may be living completely separate lives tonight, but somewhere between all the people we haven't met yet, and all the places we've never been, there is a possibility that two lives can eventually cross. And when that happens, Abby, don't want to remember this moment as the time I was waiting for you. I want to remember it as the moment I was preparing to recognize you, because sometimes the person we're waiting for doesn't arrive with a warning. There is no music, no sign, no announcement. Just an ordinary day, an ordinary place, an ordinary conversation, and then something about that person makes the ordinary feel different. Maybe that's how we'll meet. Maybe it won't be dramatic. Maybe I'll simply hear your voice for the first time, and realize that somehow, I don't want the conversation to end, and maybe you'll look at your phone afterward, see my number, and hesitate for just a second before saving it. I hope you do, because I think there are some numbers we save without thinking, and there are others we save, because somehow, we already know they'll matter. Future wife, whenever that day comes, my number will be waiting for you. Not as pressure, not as a demand, just as a quiet invitation. Whenever you're ready, call me, and maybe when you finally call me, you won't say anything important at first. Maybe you'll simply say hello, and I'll say hello back. Two ordinary words, but sometimes, the most important moments begin with words that seem completely ordinary. I think about that sometimes. How strange it is that we can spend years wondering about the person we're going to love, and then one day, everything begins with something as simple as a voice saying, hello. You won't know how many times I imagined that moment, and I won't know how many times you wondered whether someone would ever make you feel safe enough to stop pretending that you're okay all the time. That's one of the things I hope we can give each other. A place where neither of us has to pretend, because there is a particular kind of loneliness that doesn't come from being alone. It comes from being surrounded by people and still feeling like nobody really knows you. You can have hundreds of contacts in your phone and still have nobody you want to call when your heart feels heavy. You can have people who know your name, your job, your habits, even your birthday, and still have nobody who knows what you're afraid of losing. That's why I don't want us to measure our connection by how often we speak. I want to measure it by how safe we feel when we do. Maybe some days we'll talk for hours. Maybe some days we'll barely speak. Life will happen. Work will happen. Responsibilities will happen. There will be mornings when one of us wakes up exhausted. There will be evenings when neither of us has enough energy for a long conversation. And I don't want those moments to frighten us. I don't want silence to automatically mean something is wrong. Because silence between two people who trust each other can be completely different from silence between two people who are afraid of losing each other. When trust exists, silence has room inside it. It doesn't immediately demand an explanation. It doesn't say, "Why aren't you talking to me?" It simply says, "I'm still here." I want us to know that kind of silence. The kind where you can put your phone down without worrying that the person on the other side will suddenly disappear emotionally. The kind where a missed call doesn't become a reason to question everything. The kind where you don't have to constantly prove that you care, because real connection shouldn't feel like an examination you are always afraid of failing. And future wife, if I ever make you feel like you have to earn my love every single day, remind me of this. Remind me that I once wanted something different. I wanted a relationship where love wasn't constantly being tested. I wanted two people who could make mistakes without immediately becoming enemies. Two people who could disagree without threatening to leave. Two people who could say, "That hurt me," without turning the conversation into a battle over who was right. That's something I've come to understand more deeply with time. Sometimes the most loving sentence isn't, "You're right." Sometimes it's, "I understand why that hurt you." There is a difference, because when someone is hurting, they don't always need you to solve the situation. Sometimes they need you to acknowledge that their feelings have somewhere to stand. And I want to learn that, with you. I want to know when you need an answer, and when you simply need me to listen. I want to know the difference between your silence because you're peaceful, and your silence because something is bothering you. I want to recognize the little changes in your voice. Not because I want to control you, because I want to know you. There's something beautiful about being known slowly. Not everything at once, not through interrogation, not through trying to discover every detail in the first few weeks, but gradually, one conversation at a time, one morning at a time, one ordinary evening at a time. That's how people become familiar with each other. And perhaps that's what makes love stronger than attraction alone. Attraction can make you notice someone, but familiarity teaches you how to care for them. You begin to know what makes them laugh. You notice when they're unusually quiet. You remember how they take their coffee. You recognize the look they give you when they're trying not to cry. You know which subjects make them uncomfortable. You know when they need space. And eventually, caring stops feeling like an effort. It becomes part of how you move through life. I want that kind of love. Not the kind that looks perfect from far away. The kind that feels peaceful up close. And maybe that's why I keep thinking about this number. Because your number will eventually become more than a sequence of digits. It will become associated with you, your voice, your name appearing on my screen. The little feeling that comes when I see that you're calling, and I wonder, will I ever get tired of seeing your name? I don't think so. I think even years after we meet, there will be moments when your name appears on my phone and something inside me will quietly say, that's her. The woman I once knew only as an idea, the woman I once spoke about without knowing her, the woman whose face I couldn't imagine clearly, the woman who eventually became real. And maybe that's what makes waiting meaningful. Not because waiting itself is beautiful. Sometimes waiting is frustrating. Sometimes it makes you question whether the thing you're hoping for will ever happen. Sometimes you look around and wonder why everyone else seems to have found what you're still searching for. But I've learned not to compare the timing of my life with someone else's. Someone else's relationship doesn't tell me anything about mine. Someone else's marriage doesn't tell me when I'm supposed to meet you. Someone else's happiness doesn't mean I'm behind. Life doesn't hand everyone the same pages at the same time. And maybe you've needed to hear that too. Maybe you've watched people around you find love while you were still trying to understand what went wrong in your own life. Maybe you've had moments when you thought, maybe it's just not meant for me. If you've ever felt that way, I hope you don't confuse a delay with a denial. Not everything that takes longer is less valuable. Sometimes time is doing something we cannot see. It is changing us, teaching us, moving the things we once thought we needed, making us more patient, more honest, more aware of what actually matters. Because imagine meeting someone you love before you've learned how to communicate, before you've learned how to apologize, before you've learned how to control your anger, before you've learned that winning an argument can sometimes mean losing closeness. Would you recognize the value of the person standing in front of you? Maybe, maybe not. Sometimes the person we become before love determines the kind of love we're capable of keeping, and I don't want to meet you only wanting to be loved. I want to meet you prepared to love. There's a difference. Wanting to be loved asks, what can you give me? Being ready to love asks, what can I protect? What can I understand? What can I make easier for you? What part of your life can become more peaceful because I'm in it? Those are the questions I want to carry with me when I finally meet you. Not because I'll suddenly become perfect, I won't, but because I want my intentions to be bigger than my mistakes, and I want you to know something else. You don't have to arrive in my life carrying only your best memories. Bring the difficult ones too. Bring the parts of your past that taught you caution. Bring the disappointments you rarely talk about. Bring the things you wish you had done differently. I won't ask you to erase them. They're part of how you became the woman you are, and I have my own past too. There are things I would change if I could, words I would take back, moments when I should have stayed quiet, moments when I should have spoken, people I should have appreciated more, times when pride made me wait too long to say, I'm sorry. That's what life does to us. It gives us enough experience to understand things we didn't understand when we needed them most. But perhaps that's not entirely sad, because if we learn from those moments, they don't have to remain wounds. They can become wisdom. And maybe one day, when we're sitting together somewhere quiet, you'll tell me about something you regret, and I won't interrupt you. I won't immediately tell you what you should have done. I'll simply listen, then I'll probably tell you something I've learned too. That the person you were 5 years ago doesn't have to remain the person you are today. People change, hearts change, priorities change. And sometimes the most beautiful thing two people can do for each other is allow each other to keep becoming. I don't want to freeze you inside the version of you I first meet. I want to watch you grow, I want you to watch me grow, and if we're lucky, we'll still recognize each other years later. Not because we stayed exactly the same, but because beneath all the changes, we continued choosing each other. So yes, my personal number is waiting for you, but perhaps what I'm really waiting for isn't your call. It's the day when calling me feels natural to you, the day you don't hesitate, the day you don't wonder whether you're bothering me, the day my number feels like home, and when that day comes, I hope you understand why I wanted you to have it, because I never wanted to give you just a number. I wanted to give you a way back to me, even on the days when life becomes loud, even when words become difficult, even when distance exists, even when neither of us knows exactly what to say, you can call, and I'll answer. Because if you're truly my future wife, AB don't want you wondering whether there's a place for you in my life. I want you to know there is. And maybe that's the part I want you to remember most. You won't always have to know what to say. You won't always have to call with a reason. Sometimes you can call simply because you miss me, and I hope I can do the same, because somewhere along the way, we have been taught that every conversation needs a purpose. Why are you calling? What do you need? Is everything okay? But what if the reason is simply, I wanted to hear you? I think that's one of the simplest forms of affection. Not needing anything, not asking for anything, just wanting someone's presence. And when two people reach that kind of comfort, something changes. The phone stops feeling like a device. It becomes a small bridge between two lives. You might be sitting on your side of the world, looking out a window. I might be sitting somewhere completely different, listening to the quiet around me. And for a few minutes, distance becomes less important. That's what I hope my number eventually means to you. Not obligation. Can. There is another thing I want you to know. If you ever call me after a difficult day, I don't want you to feel embarrassed about being emotional. You don't have to organize your feelings before you bring them to me. You don't have to make them sound reasonable. You don't have to explain every detail before you're allowed to feel what you're feeling. Sometimes emotions arrive before explanations do. And that's okay. You can say, I don't know what's wrong. And I'll believe you. You can say, I just need some time. And I'll respect that. You can say, can you stay on the phone for a while? And if I can, I will, because love isn't always about knowing how to fix something. Sometimes love is simply refusing to make someone's difficult moment lonelier. Think about how much that matters. A person can survive a difficult day, but having someone beside them can change how that day feels. That's why I don't want to promise you that I'll always have the perfect answer. I can't. There will be things neither of us knows how to handle. There will be moments when life asks more from us than we're prepared to give. There will be decisions that scare us. There may even be times when we're both tired enough to misunderstand each other. But I want one thing to remain steady. We talk, we don't disappear. We don't punish each other with silence. We don't use distance as a weapon. If something hurts, we say it. If something matters, we say it. If we are wrong, we apologize. And if we need reassurance, we ask for it. That sounds simple. But simple things become difficult when emotions become strong. That's when people start protecting their pride instead of protecting their relationship. Someone becomes quiet because they want the other person to notice. Someone stops replying because they want to be chased. Someone says, do whatever you want, while secretly hoping the other person will understand that they don't mean it. And suddenly two people who love each other are standing on opposite sides of the same misunderstanding. I don't want us to live like that. If you're upset with me, tell me. If I've hurt you, tell me. If you need something from me, tell me. And if you don't know how to explain it yet, tell me that too. You don't have to find perfect words. I'll rather hear an imperfect truth than a beautiful silence, because silence can protect you for a moment. But honesty can protect a relationship for years. And future wife, I want us to become good at honesty. Not cruel honesty. Not the kind people use as an excuse to say whatever they want. Gentle honesty, the kind that says, I love you enough to tell you what I really feel. And I respect you enough to listen when you tell me what you really feel. That kind of honesty requires courage. Because being vulnerable means giving another person the ability to hurt you. That's why vulnerability feels dangerous. When you tell someone what matters to you, you give them information they could use against you. When you admit you're afraid, they could laugh. When you admit you care, they could pull away. When you say, I need you, they could make you feel weak. But when the right person receives that vulnerability with care, something extraordinary happens. The thing that could have become a weakness becomes the beginning of trust. And I want to be careful with your trust. If you tell me something privately, I want it to remain safe with me. If you show me a part of yourself that you don't show everyone else, I don't want to make you regret showing it. That's what intimacy really means to me. Not simply being physically close, being emotionally safe. Knowing that you can lower your guard without immediately having to put it back up. Maybe that's what you've been waiting for too. Not someone who makes your heart race every second. Someone who eventually makes your heart rest. There's a difference. Excitement is beautiful, but peace is rare. And as life becomes more complicated, I think peace becomes more attractive than excitement. You begin to understand that you don't want someone who keeps you guessing. You don't want to spend your evenings wondering where you stand. You don't want to decode every message. You don't want affection one day and coldness the next. You want consistency. You want someone whose actions don't constantly contradict their words. Someone whose presence doesn't make you question your worth. Someone who can say, I'm here, and then actually be there. That's the kind of man I want to become for you. Not because I want to impress you. Because I know how valuable that kind of consistency is. And maybe you'll teach me things too. Maybe you'll teach me that not every problem needs an immediate solution. Maybe you'll remind me to slow down. Maybe you'll notice that I'm carrying something I haven't talked about. Maybe you'll be the person who looks at me one evening and says, you've been quiet today. And I'll probably try to say, I'm fine. And you'll probably look at me for another second. Not because you're trying to catch me lying. Because you know me well enough to know when fine doesn't mean fine. And maybe I'll finally smile and admit, you're right. That's the kind of knowing I hope we develop. Not mind reading, not guessing. Knowing the kind that comes from paying attention. Because love is attention. Think about that. We often talk about love as if it's a feeling that arrives and stays forever. But feelings change. Attention is a choice. You choose to notice. You choose to remember. You choose to listen. You choose to put your phone down when someone is speaking to you. You choose to ask about the thing they mentioned 3 days ago. You choose to remember that they were nervous about something. You choose to check in small choices, almost invisible. But those small choices eventually become the atmosphere of a relationship. And I want our relationship to feel like somewhere both of us are noticed, not watched, not controlled, not monitored, not judged, noticed. There is a huge difference. I want to notice when you're tired, when you're excited, when you're pretending something doesn't matter. When you're proud of yourself but too humble to say it. When you accomplish something you've been working toward for months. I want to celebrate those moments with you. And when something doesn't work out, I want to be the person who reminds of you that one disappointing day doesn't define your entire life, not with empty encouragement, just with presence. Sometimes the most comforting thing you can hear is simply, "Come here." No explanation, no lecture, no solution, just come closer. And maybe that's what marriage should become after enough years. A place where you don't always need words. A place where your shoulders can finally relax. A place where you don't have to be impressive. A place where you can take off the emotional armor you've been wearing all day, because the world can be exhausting. People expect things from us. Work expects things. Family expects things. Responsibilities expect things. Sometimes even our own minds expect too much from us. And then you come home, and there should be at least one place where you don't have to perform. I want that place to be us, and I want you to be that place for me too. Not because either of us is responsible for fixing the other, but because life feels different when you know there is someone beside you who genuinely cares whether you're okay. That's what I hope happens when you finally save my number. Maybe you'll never realize how much meaning those 10 digits carried before you ever touched your screen. Maybe you'll simply save my name, maybe you'll put a little heart beside it, maybe you won't. Maybe you'll just type my name and move on with your day. And that's okay. Because I won't need a symbol to know what you mean to me. I won't need a perfect message every morning. I won't need constant proof. If we're truly meant to build a life together, the proof will eventually be in the way we live, in the way we speak, in the way we forgive, in the way we wait for each other, in the way we keep choosing each other when nobody is watching. And one day, perhaps years after you first saved my number, you'll look back and realize something. The number wasn't the important part. The person behind it was, and perhaps I'll realize the same thing. That all those nights I spent wondering who you were weren't really about finding a stranger. They were about becoming the kind of man who would know what to do when love finally arrived. So keep your heart open. Future wife, not recklessly, not blindly. Just enough to let something genuine enter. And if one day you see my number on your screen, don't be afraid to call. You don't have to prepare. You don't have to find the perfect words. Just call. I'll know why you're calling. You're finally here. And maybe the first thing I will notice isn't what you say. Maybe it's the pause before you speak. That tiny hesitation that tells me there are 1,000 thoughts moving through your mind at once. Maybe you'll wonder whether I'm really the person you imagined. And I'll probably wonder the same thing about you. Because imagining someone is easy. You can create an entire person in your mind. You can imagine their smile, their voice, the way they look at you, the way they would say your name. But a real person is always more complicated than an imagination. And I don't want to fall in love with an idea of you. I want to know you, the real you, the woman who has good days and difficult ones. The woman who sometimes changes her mind. The woman who can be confident in one moment and uncertain in another. The woman who may laugh loudly with people she trusts, but become quiet around people she doesn't know. The woman who has memories she treasures and memories she wishes she could forget. I want all of that, because perfection would leave us with nowhere to grow. I don't want perfection. I want honesty, and I hope you will want the same from me. There will be things about me that you won't understand immediately. There will be habits you'll have to get used to. There will be moments when I need to explain why something affects me the way it does, and I hope you'll give me the same patience I promised to give you, because knowing someone deeply takes time. You don't learn a person's heart in one conversation. You learn it through repetition, through ordinary days, through the way they react when they're tired, through how they treat people who can't do anything for them, through how they behave when nobody is impressed, through the way they handle disappointment, through the way they apologize, through the things they remember. And maybe that's why I don't want our beginning to be rushed. I don't need to know everything about you immediately. I would rather discover you slowly, one little detail at a time. Maybe I'll learn which song you always return to. Maybe I'll learn which food makes you feel at home. Maybe I'll learn that there is a particular time of day when you become unusually thoughtful. Maybe I'll discover that you have a habit you've never even noticed. And perhaps you'll discover mine. That's how closeness grows, not through one enormous moment. Through hundreds of tiny moments that quietly become important. One day, you'll realize you know how I take my coffee. Another day, you'll know when I need a little silence. Eventually, you'll know what kind of day I've had just by hearing my hello. And I'll know the same about you. That kind of understanding can't be forced. It has to be lived. And I think that's why I don't want to make grand promises about a future I haven't reached yet. I don't want to tell you that every day will be perfect. It won't. There will be mornings when we're both impatient. There will be evenings when we're exhausted. There may be disagreements. There may be moments when one of us says something the other wishes we hadn't said. But what matters to me is what happens afterward. Do we come back? Do we listen? Do we take responsibility? Do we remember that we're on the same side? That's what I care about. Because love isn't measured only by how close two people are when everything is beautiful. It's measured by what they do with the distance when things become difficult. And if we ever reach one of those difficult seasons, I want us to remember the beginning. Not because we should pretend nothing is wrong, but because sometimes remembering why you chose someone helps you find the patience to understand them again. Maybe that's why your name appearing on my phone will eventually mean so much. It won't just mean that you're calling, it will remind me that someone chose to reach for me. And there is something deeply meaningful about being chosen not once. Repeatedly, every day, you can tell someone you love them once, but choosing them is something you demonstrate over time. You choose them when you're tired. You choose them when you're busy. You choose patience when anger would be easier. You choose honesty when hiding would be more comfortable. You choose forgiveness when your pride wants punishment. You choose conversation when silence would be easier. And I want to learn how to make those choices, because I don't want you to look back after years with me and wonder whether I ever truly understood what I had. I want you to know that I did. I want you to feel appreciated while you're still beside me. Not only after you've left the room. Not only when something reminds me how fortunate I am, right there in the ordinary moments, when you're making coffee, when you're walking through the house, when you're talking about something that seems completely unimportant, when you're sitting beside me without saying anything. I want to notice. Because sometimes we don't appreciate ordinary moments until they become memories. And I don't want to spend our life together constantly waiting for something bigger. I don't want us to think happiness begins after the next vacation, after the next house, after the next achievement, after we have more money, after life becomes easier. What if happiness is already hiding inside the ordinary? A quiet morning, 2 cups on a table, your phone beside mine, a familiar voice from another room, a hand reaching for mine without thinking. Those moments may never become impressive photographs, but they may become the moments we miss most someday. That's something life teaches you slowly. You begin by chasing big moments. Then you get older and realize you would give almost anything to experience certain ordinary moments again. A familiar voice, a familiar room, a person sitting exactly where they always used to sit, the sound of someone laughing from another room, the feeling of knowing what tomorrow probably looks like. We don't realize how precious ordinary life is while we're inside it. And future wife, when you come into my life, I don't want to rush past those moments. I want to notice them, I want to remember them, I want to appreciate them while they're happening, because one day, everything changes. People change, homes change, cities change, phones change. Our responsibilities change, even our faces change. But there are certain feelings we can protect if we're intentional about them. The feeling of being safe with someone, the feeling of being listened to, the feeling of being welcomed home, the feeling of knowing that somebody is genuinely happy to see you. Those things are worth protecting, and I hope we protect them. I hope we never become so comfortable that we stop appreciating each other. I hope familiarity never becomes an excuse for carelessness. I hope we still say thank you. I hope we still say good morning. I hope we still ask, how was your day? Not because we need information, because we care. There is a difference between hearing someone and listening to them. Hearing happens automatically. Listening requires you to put part of yourself aside. And I want to listen to you, even when you've told me something before. Even when I think I already know the answer, because people aren't fixed. You might feel differently tomorrow. Something that didn't bother you last year may matter deeply now. Something you once wanted may no longer matter. And I want to leave room for that. I don't want to keep you trapped inside the first version of yourself I met. You deserve to change. And so do I. Maybe that's one of the most beautiful things about choosing someone for life. You're not promising to love the exact same person forever. You're promising to keep learning the person they become. And I want to keep learning you, even years from now. Even when I think I know everything. Especially then. Because there will always be something new to discover in another human being. A thought you never heard before. A memory they finally decide to share. A dream they were too embarrassed to admit. A fear they finally feel safe enough to explain. And when those things come, I hope I never make you regret trusting me. That's the promise behind this number. Not that I will always know what to say. Not that I will always understand immediately. Not that I will never make mistakes. The promise is simpler. If you reach for me honestly, I will try to meet you honestly. If you tell me, you're hurting, I won't make your pain compete with mine. If you need space, I won't automatically assume you've stopped loving me. If you need closeness, I won't make you feel weak for asking. And if we ever lose our way for a moment, maybe hope we both remember that walking away is not always the only answer. Sometimes two people simply need to stop, breathe, and find each other again. Maybe that's what I mean when I say my personal number is waiting for you. It's not really about the number, it's about access. It's about knowing that there is someone you can reach. Someone whose voice can make the world feel a little quieter. Someone who doesn't need you to explain why you called. Someone who simply answers and says, "I'm here," and perhaps that's all any of us are really searching for. Not someone who promises to remove every difficulty from our lives. Just someone who makes us feel less alone while we face them. So when you finally save my number, future wife, save it knowing that behind those digits is a man who has been learning what it means to care. A man who doesn't expect you to be perfect. A man who wants to build something steady. A man who understands that love isn't only found in extraordinary moments. It's built in the ordinary ones. And if I ever forget that, I hope you'll remind me, because I don't want to spend our life searching for some perfect version of love. I want to recognize the beautiful version that exists quietly between us, the version that begins with a simple call, a simple hello, and two people deciding, let's get to know each other. Maybe that's all it takes: one call, one conversation, one honest beginning, and a number that was waiting long before either of us knew exactly why. And maybe that's why I don't want you to think of my number as something waiting for you in a hurry. There is no deadline, there is no pressure, there is no clock counting down until you find me. If there is one thing I have learned about love, it is that forcing something to happen does not make it arrive sooner. Sometimes we become so focused on finding the right person that we forget to become comfortable with the life we're living right now. And I don't want you to feel like you have to put your life on hold for me. Build the life you want. Take care of the people who matter to you. Go places you've never been. Learn things you've always been curious about. Have mornings when you wake up with no idea what the day will bring. Make plans. Champ them, start over when necessary. Become more of yourself. Because when we finally meet, I don't want you to arrive as someone who has been waiting for me to complete her life. I want you to arrive as a whole person, someone who already knows how to stand on her own, someone who has dreams of her own, someone who can say, "This is who I am," without needing permission, and I want to do the same. I don't want our relationship to become two incomplete people desperately holding on to each other because they are afraid of being alone. I want it to be two complete lives choosing to walk in the same direction. That's different. And healthier. Because love should add depth to your life. It shouldn't erase the person you were before it. You should still have your interests, your friendships, your quiet time, your goals, your relationship with yourself. And I should have mine. Then we meet somewhere in the middle and create something neither of us could have created alone. That idea means more to me as I get older. When you're younger, love can feel like losing yourself inside another person. You want to know everything they are doing. You want every minute, every message, every answer, every reassurance. But eventually you realize that love doesn't become stronger because you possess someone. It becomes stronger when you trust them enough to let them breathe. I want you to breathe, and I want to breathe too. I want us to miss each other sometimes. Not because we're unhappy together, because we're two people with lives. And when we come back to each other, we have something to share, something new to talk about, something that happened while we were apart, a thought, a discovery, a funny moment, a difficult moment, a small detail that suddenly became important. That space can actually make closeness deeper. Because when you give someone freedom and they still choose to return to you, that choice means something. And I want to be chosen freely, not because you are afraid of losing me. Not because you have nowhere else to go, because you genuinely want to be here. That's the kind of love I want. The kind that doesn't need chains. The kind that doesn't need constant proof. The kind that can say, "Go live your day. I'll be here when you come back." There is so much security in those words. And maybe one day, you'll understand why I keep returning to this idea of my number. A number is useful because it creates access. But trust is what makes someone worth calling. You can have someone's number and never call them. You can know someone's address and never visit. You can follow someone's life online and still know almost nothing about their heart. Conching is not measured by access. It's measured by closeness. That's why I don't want you simply to have my number. I want you to know what it means to have it. If you call me because something made you smile, I want to hear it. If you call because you're worried, I want to know. If you call because you need advice, I'll try to help. If you call because you don't want to be alone for a few minutes, I'll understand. And if you call without knowing why, that's okay too. You don't have to justify your need for connection. We are human. Sometimes we simply want to hear a familiar voice. Sometimes a voice can do what advice cannot. It can remind you that you're not carrying everything by yourself. And maybe that's what I want to offer you. Not solutions to every problem, just companionship while you face them, because I know life will eventually test us. Nobody gets a relationship untouched by difficulty. There will be responsibilities we didn't expect. There will be decisions that make both of us nervous. There will be moments when one person's needs conflict with the others. There will be days when patience feels expensive. But I don't want difficulty to automatically become distance. I want difficulty to teach us how to stand closer. If money becomes stressful, we talk. If family becomes complicated, we talk. If work takes too much from us, we talk. If one of us feels neglected, we talk. If something changes inside either of us, we talk. Not because talking magically fixes everything, but because silence rarely fixes what honesty could address. I think people sometimes wait until a small problem becomes a large one before they finally speak. A little disappointment becomes resentment. Resentment becomes distance. Distant becomes assumptions. Assumptions become arguments. And eventually two people are fighting about something that began months earlier with one sentence nobody said. I don't want that. If something small bothers you, tell me while it's still small. I'll do the same. Let's not let pride turn little things into permanent wounds. And when one of us is wrong, let's make saying I'm sorry normal, not humiliate, not a defeat, just a bridge. There is nothing weak about apologizing. It takes strength to look at someone you love and say, I understand that I hurt you, not, but you also, not, you made me do it, just, I understand. Then change the behavior, because an apology without change becomes another promise that eventually loses its meaning. I want our apologies to have weight. If I say I'm sorry, I want you to eventually see something different. If you apologize, I want to believe you too. That's how trust grows, not through one dramatic promise, through evidence, small evidence, repeated evidence, over time. And maybe that's why real love feels calmer as it becomes deeper. At first, you're asking questions. Do they like me? Are they serious? Will they stay? Can I trust them? But eventually, if the relationship is healthy, those questions become quieter. You stop searching for signs, you start seeing consistency. And consistency is one of the most comforting things another human being can give you. Knowing what to expect. Knowing their words mean something. Knowing that affection doesn't disappear whenever life becomes inconvenient. Knowing that one difficult conversation doesn't erase everything good. That's the kind of safety I hope we build. Not a perfect relationship, a dependable one. Because perfect is impossible. Dependable is something we can choose. And future wife, I want to be dependable. I want you to know that if I tell you I'll call, I'll call. If I say I'll be there, I'll make every reasonable effort to be there. If I make a mistake, I'll own it. If I don't understand something, I'll ask instead of assuming. If I disagree with you, I'll still respect you. And if you are having one of those days when you don't feel like yourself, AP won't use that moment to remind you of every other time you've struggled. I'll remember that you're human because I will need that same grace from you. There will be days when I'm not the easiest person to understand, days when I'm tired, days when I'm frustrated, days when something from my past affects the way I react to something happening now. And I hope you'll remind me gently, not with cruelty, not with humiliation. Just enough to help me see what I cannot see clearly in the moment. That's partnership to me, not one person always being strong while the other always follows. Both people carrying each other at different times. Some days you'll have more strength. I'll lean on you. Other days I'll have more. You'll lean on me. And sometimes neither of us will feel particularly strong. Then we'll sit together and take the next step anyway. One step then another. We don't have to know the entire road. We only need enough courage for what comes next. And maybe that is what I hope you understand when you eventually hear me say your name. I don't know exactly what our future will look like. I don't know where we'll live. I don't know what our mornings will look like. I don't know which challenges we'll face. I don't know which dreams we'll accomplish. I don't know how much we'll change. But I know what I want the foundation to be. Respect, honesty, patience, faithfulness, ladder, conversation, forgiveness, and the willingness to keep learning each other. That's enough for me, more than enough. Because the future doesn't need to be perfectly planned to be meaningful. Sometimes you simply need two people willing to meet each day with sincerity. And maybe someday, when we're much older, we'll look back at this period of our lives and realize how much we didn't know. We didn't know where we'd meet. We didn't know when. We didn't know what